All right, hello, everyone. Um, welcome. This is our Data Career Masterclass. I'm Celeste Grootman. I am the CEO of DataQuest, and I'm so excited to be hosting this conversation today. I am here joined with Kishana Peck, founder and CEO of WomenX in Data Science. And we're going to get started here in just about 2 minutes. So until then, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're from and what you're pursuing in data science. It's great to kind of get to know everybody. We're going to have a ton of people here on the call today. This is great if you do get to kind of connect with somebody from your hometown. We've had a lot of connections happen in these webinars. So yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself as we're going to get started. And yeah, give us your name and where you're from. So yeah, welcome, Philip from Maryland. It's great to have you on the call today. All right, Melik from the Ivory Coast. Wonderful to meet you. Adrian from, oh my goodness, now it's going too fast. Let's see, Nick from London. It's great to meet you. Saksham from India, wonderful to have you. Andre from New Jersey, great to have you. Prince from South Africa, wonderful to have you. Helen from Florida, big shout out from Florida, great to have you today. Sam from Malaysia. Yeah, we have people from all over the world. It's wonderful to have everyone here joining today. We are about 2 minutes in, so we are going to get started. We will have more people joining. And so, yeah, keep introducing yourselves as you're coming in. This webinar series today, it's all about helping you get started in the data field. So we're in webinar 4. This is about the interview process. That in these 5 sessions, we've been covering everything that you need to get and ace that interview. If you have missed the previous webinars, they have been recorded, and we'll be sending out links to those webinars along with a link to the recording from this webinar after, so don't worry, everything has been recorded and you will get those links. Yeah, just sit back, relax, enjoy what you're getting today, and you'll get those links here at the end of this webinar. So let me introduce our speaker. Kishana Peck is the founder and CEO of WomenX in Data Science. She's a powerful advocate for anyone who wants to start the career that they want. She has over 10 years of experience leading data teams and shaping strategies across nonprofits, fintech, and advertising, and she's a true leader in the data field. The WomenX in Data Science is Canada's first conference for women in data, and she's grown a thriving community of over 4,000 members. She's an established speaker and thought leader, and she's known for her work in the AI and data literacy. She's recognized and featured in the Globe and Mail, Breakfast Television, CP24, and many other prominent media outlets. She brings a wealth of experience, insight, and passion to her work, and that makes her a perfect mentor for this Data Career Masterclass series. So we're super excited to be able to welcome her here, and just grateful to have her expertise. So thank you so much, Kishana, for being here and sharing your advice with us today. So yeah, without any more ado, I'm going to pass over the mic to you, and yeah.
Thanks, Celeste. Thank you for that great introduction. And I am really excited to be here again for another webinar, our 4th one on interview preparation for data science roles. So in our last session, we did a recap of some of the takeaways were regarding resume optimization. So you would have gotten a guide for that with an initial resume analysis prompt and an ATS optimization prompt there as well. So I hope you had the chance to use those tools, but if not, you can use them along your journey as well. They're evergreen. So today we'll be talking about interview preparation for data science roles. And our first poll is, how comfortable are you with the data science interview process? So I'll wait for that poll to go up. So I'm very comfortable and have gone through several interviews. I'm somewhat comfortable, but I need more practice. I'm familiar with the basics, but I feel unprepared. And I'm new to the process and I don't know what to expect. So choose the one that fits you the best. This also helps me frame the conversation that we'll be having today. Okay, I'm just waiting for the results to come through. All right, so the majority are new to the process and don't know what to expect, followed by familiar with the basics but feel unprepared, and somewhat comfortable but need more practice. And only 2% are very comfortable and have gone through several interviews. Okay, great. So this is definitely the webinar for you. And those that were the 2% that were super comfortable, maybe you as well can add in your tips into the chat to share with the community. So we're going to go through the hiring manager point of view, your preparation guide, salary, questions, and follow-up. So I always start with the hiring manager's point of view because this helps you, like, you're tailoring the conversation and the experience for the hiring manager, right? So hiring managers, what they're looking for during interviews are if you're a good technical and non-technical fit for the role, your overall fit for the role, and your potential for growth. So overall fit for the role is both the skills that you have, but also if you're going to fit into the company culture, the team culture, the department culture. So you need to align your preparation with the hiring goals. So for technical and non-technical skills, things that we're going to be doing is researching the company's tools and technologies. You can do this through going on Glassdoor. Some companies have their own blogs for their data and engineering departments. So you can see if they have like Medium articles or their own blog on their website. You can also see what the salary ranges are for the roles within that department as well. You can do practice coding and review relevant frameworks. So this is something that you can do in DataQuest, or some companies also use LeetCode, for example. But you need to be well versed with the technical concepts because this is something that is going to be assessed during the interview process. You definitely showcased it already in your resume and in your portfolio, hence why you're at the interview stage now. So this is not a time to shy away. It's actually a time to lock in. And then that way you can showcase your skills throughout the process. And practice explaining data concepts and insights. Sometimes you'll get the simplest questions around statistics, for example, pop up in a data science interview because they're trying to make sure that you know the fundamentals. So ensuring that you are ready on the technical side is very important. For fit for the role, this is where researching the company's mission and values comes into play. So you can find this on the company's website. What you can also do is you can look up different news articles that the company has been showing up in. So then you can kind of see the direction of the company. You definitely want to understand the market position of the company, whether they're growing, they're contracting in different roles, maybe they're doubling down on their data team. You want to make sure that you are investing your time as a part of the interview process in a positive way. So you need to understand the companies that you're applying for. And the interview stage is a good place to do it if you haven't already done it while you were tailoring your resume. preparing stories to showcase your experience, and I'll give you a framework of how to frame those stories. But having 2 to 3 stories that show that you are a good fit for this role and rehearsing those are a good starting point for being prepared for the interview. And practicing answering the questions as well with company values. And this is something that you can do with someone that you know, or that you can do with a large language model, which I have a prompt for you later on in the presentation that you can use. Your potential for growth. So as I said before, if you meet 100% of the criteria in the job description, you shouldn't apply. You're overqualified. You want to have room for growth. So you want to be able to show that there's potential for growth there. Because from the hiring manager's point of view, I want to be able to visualize how you can grow within this role and grow within the company. So you can highlight examples of past growth and adaptability. So if you're transitioning careers, that story has a lot of value in growth and how you committed to a new path to grow. So you can definitely look at your past experiences and see how you can use them to show that you do have a growth mindset and that you can grow within this team. Asking insightful questions about future projects. Now, sometimes the information is proprietary, so they won't give you a lot of information. But what you can do is look for information that's already publicly available, so something that's been covered in the news. And if you're asking questions about where they're going, and things like that, they may be more open to have that conversation with you, which I'll explain to you how to frame your questions for the end of the interview throughout this presentation, and emphasizing a continuing learning mindset. So sometimes on a job description, you'll find tools that you aren't well versed in, but you are well versed in like a similar tool. So being able to explain to the hiring manager how it's not a mixed match and how you're willing to continually learn and to fill in any gaps you have is really important during the hiring process. So, salary and offer negotiation. So, I didn't want to shy away from talking about money because you're not volunteering. You're looking for a job to make money to take care of yourself and your family. One second. Let me pause.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I just want to take a minute while Kashana gets her breath. She has been sick all week, and I want to thank her for coming and keeping this webinar slot that we've been advertising, even though she has been struggling with a cold. So, yeah, I'm going to give her a second here. Are you okay?
Yeah, I think drinking the tea almost made like the coughing start because I wasn't
It's
coughing before when we were prepping.
it's when you try not to cough that it's the absolute worst.
Yeah, and it was like
Like,
tickling my throat. I had to.
yes, don't try not to cough. It'll make it worse. But yes, thank you, Kashana. I know you have been really feeling very much under the weather. So I'll give you your mic back.
Thanks, Celeste. So for salary and offer negotiation, so when you're going through the screening process, that's actually when you should have asked about the range. So what I like to do is I like to ask about the range for the role before they ask me what my salary expectations are. All right, what my salary expectations are. And I also go into the conversation with what my target and my walk away numbers are. So usually your target, so you would choose a range, and I would say like whatever your bottom is, I would add 10 to 15% onto it, onto your bottom. So for example, if your bottom was 50K, and you know like if you get 50K like you would be super happy, I would say 55 to I would say 55 to 70. So then it's like no matter if they meet you at your bottom, like you're already somewhere that you wouldn't mind to be. Companies like to save money, so the likelihood that they're meeting you at the top of your range is unlikely unless they already had that budgeted for the role and that they have like equitable um, salary bands that you would have fell into anyways. And then during the negotiation phase, you can say things like, based on my experience and the market rate for this role, I'm targeting this range. You would have gotten the range from your research. So when you were researching on Glassdoor for different data roles at different companies that were similar industry with similar company size, you would have gotten a range. Or if you were able to find the Glassdoor for that particular company and those data professionals already put up their range, those are the ranges that you're using. And you also want to have your bargaining chips that you don't mind being flexible on. So if the salary that they're offering you is less than desired, there's some things that you can negotiate, like you can negotiate vacation time, you can negotiate whether or not you get to work from home a couple of days, and different perks. Sometimes there's a sign-on bonus, but usually for entry-level roles, there's not really a sign-on bonus. But you do have some things that are easy to negotiate. And I would say vacation time is one of the easiest things to negotiate there. And then you can decide on your non-negotiables. So these are things like career growth opportunities, the benefits, the work-life balance, and the team culture. And these are things that you're also evaluating through the interview process. It's a two-way street. You are also valuable. So you need to make sure that the role actually aligns with what you're hoping for, and how you're hoping to grow. You need to stand firm while you're doing the salary and offer negotiations. And I say this because usually raises are on average like 7%, like a basic wage to like get to like inflation is usually around like 4 to 7%. And if you negotiated a range that is like 10% or 15% higher than the amount of money you're making now, then those things won't bother you because you already came in at a number you were comfortable with. And also, usually, when you start, depending on when you start with the company, you might not even be up for any type of raise until the following cycle. So make sure that you are going in at a number that you're comfortable with, because you don't want to have resentment once you find out that other people negotiated and you decided that you didn't want to because you were trying to be nice, but it's business, like it's an exchange. So make sure that you negotiate. So my second poll is, which part of the data science interview are you most concerned about? So I'll wait for that poll to go up. So we have technical questions, behavioral questions, case scenario based questions, and culture fit questions. I'm a little nervous to drink this tea. I hope it doesn't make me cough again. Okay, so I'm just waiting for the responses from this. I'll give you one more second. This is the peppermint. Okay, and I'm just waiting for the results to pop up, but we are going to go through each of these type of questions so that you know how to answer them during your interviews. So the majority of you were technical questions. So, and then that was followed by case scenario based questions, and then behavioral, and then culture fit. So the case scenario and the technical questions are also similar in approach. So we'll talk about those since they're about 69% of what you're worried about. So, starting off with technical assessments. So, there's usually three different types of technical assessments. These are the most popular types. So, there's the take home. The take home is easy in a way because it's open book and you have your resources there, and you usually have a good amount of time, like you have like a full business day or something to do it. Sometimes they require more work as well. So there is the take home assessments. Pair programming. So this is usually when they pair you with someone technical on their team for them to see how you code. You're able to ask them questions. And pair programming is something that companies do sometimes in order to balance out the way that projects are done in a group. And live coding. So this is when you're live coding during the interview. And a tip is to ask about the assessment format beforehand. So this way you're not worried weeks in advance of how to prepare for this. And you can decide what to do. So with a technical assessment, some ways to prepare would be with data quests, which you should already have, and trying out the different problem sets, the different projects, and seeing where your gaps are. There's also Leet Code, which a few companies actually use Leet Code as their technical assessment tool. So I would start there for preparing for them. And with technical and case-based questions, you can actually use the same method in order to answer them. So you would clarify, so you would start by clarifying the question if needed. This ensures that you have all of the information before you answer the question, and if you're unsure about something, you get it out the way. Outline your approach before diving in, and then proceed to implement the solution, whether it's writing code or explaining your thought process. So sometimes for technical assessments, you'll be explaining how you would approach a situation, and sometimes you'll actually need to code. So the do section would be proceeding to showcase that, and showcase your thought process. And then evaluate would be after you're done making the solution, because it's not going to be the best solution in the world because it is timed. You're under pressure. You probably don't have all the resources that you need, and you probably don't have complete information. You can use this time, the evaluate time, to review your solution, discuss any edge cases, and let them know what you would do if you had more time, if you had more resources. And that can kind of save it if you, for example, didn't have the best implementation in the do section. So I call this the code method. So clarify, outline, do, and evaluate. And an example is if the question was, imagine you're working with a data set that has significant missing values and you need to prepare it for a predictive model, how would you handle this? So you would clarify by asking questions about the extent and the pattern of the missing values. If this is a technical assessment where you actually need to code, this is something where you could do like exploratory analysis so you know the extent of the problem. Outline, so this is where you would outline potential approaches based on what you observed. Do is this is how you would implement the chosen imputation strategy. So you can either speak this through, or you would actually need to code this. And then evaluate, so you can talk about the impact of your approach, and additional things that you would do after, if you had more time, if you had more resources, and if you had more information. So behavioral questions sound more like describe a time when you had to collaborate with a team to complete a project. How did you handle any differences of opinion or conflict? Tell me about a challenging time you encountered in a data project. How did you go about solving it? Can you give an example of a time when you had to meet a tight deadline? How did you manage your time and ensure quality? So these were the questions that you weren't really worried about. So I won't spend too much time here, but you can use the STAR method. So this is basically situation. So you set the scene, the task, so you explain your role and responsibility in the situation. Action, you describe the actions that you took, and results, so basically the outcomes. So this is the STAR method. And an example is tell me about a time when you faced a difficult deadline, how you handled it. I had a 2 week deadline to develop a predictive model. I was supposed to deliver an accurate model for the product team. I focused on key features, automated the data cleaning, and I held daily check ins with the product team. And the result was that I met the deadline, and the accuracy helped the team um, achieve 15% increase in product engagement post launch. So these ones are easy, and you probably use this exact method when you are interviewing for other roles. Culture fit questions, these ones sometimes they go, no one really cares about them, which makes sense because looking at the poll, you all weren't really worried about the culture fit questions. But sometimes these are the make and break between you and another candidate. So these are basically questions like tell me about a time you received constructive feedback, how did you respond, and what did you learn from the experience. They're trying to understand how you communicate in tough situations and see if it matches how they also communicate in tough situations. So, for example, companies that have like values of like, I would say like direct communication, um, they would be looking for someone that could take that feedback and not take it personally, and action it. But another company that may feel a little bit, may not have it explicitly written anywhere, but may take a more passive approach to constructive feedback, would be looking for a more toned down approach to it, maybe accepting responsibility, not providing any pushback or asking more questions. It really matters on the culture of the company. So these are some culture fit questions here. And I would use the row method for this. So this is only three, but I would start with my relevant experience, the opportunities for growth, and ways to contribute. So this would look like, how do you keep up with trends in data science and what motivates you to stay current in such a rapidly changing field? I regularly engage with data science communities. I take online courses and I attend conferences to stay up to date. I'm particularly excited in advancing my skills in AI ethics, which aligns with the company's focus on responsible innovation. And I look forward to sharing the insights and tools with the team to drive forward thinking solutions and support collective growth. So I was able to sandwich that and kind of bring it back to what I'm offering to the team. So your questions. So these are the most important. When I have an interview and there are no questions from the interviewee, I get suspicious. I get suspicious because why don't you have any questions? And the questions shouldn't just be about the process, like the interview process, because like those are standard. I'll give them to you after. But you are basically now going to be spending like 40 hours a week with this team working on these projects, which is most of your waking days. So I would hope that you have some questions vetting if this opportunity is right for you. And this is also one-on-one time that you get with the interview team. So why not ask all the questions that you have? So some questions are advice that they would give someone who wants to make impact. So this allows them to tell you what they see for the next like 30 to 60 days, how they're going to measure you of if you're doing those things or not. Which I know in Canada we have like three months, where 3 months probation, that if you don't perform in the 3 months, we can fire you without cause, right? So it's actually very important information for you to know how to succeed in those first 3 months, because you want to stay on. So understanding what they would be looking for you to show success in that first phase is really important. How they envision the role supporting the team key objectives for the next year. So they're hiring for a reason. There's a gap. Um, and also, even bringing it back to salary, usually you're hiring for a role that brings at least 5x of revenue or value back into the company. So if they're hiring for data roles, it's probably because they have some projects related to it. They might not disclose them, but they might be able to tell you broadly where the company is thinking of going with their data initiatives. What do you most enjoy about leading the team, and how do you envision this role contributing to that environment? So this one is very interesting, and it's more about the manager. So you could understand what they like about leading the team. You can also ask questions about what their communication style and what their leadership style is, to be able to see if you have someone who is really hands-on, someone who's hands-off, because these are also things that you should know what your preferences are. So for me, for example, I like managers that are hands off because I'm very self directed and I have a lot of initiative. So that works for me. But for someone else who you might be early stage, and you have initiative, but you do require more guidance, you might want a manager who you have like regular check ins with, who's super detailed in what the deliverables are and the objectives. So these are questions that you can tease out of the interviewer by understanding what their leadership style is. Some other questions is, how does the data team collaborate with other departments? So this question actually helps you understand like what is the position of the data team in the grand scheme of things. Is the data team a central department for the company? This will also help you understand what the scope of your work will be. If the data team is a value team in the company, sometimes it's a team in the back just like collecting dust that doesn't really get its get its flowers. And at other times it's actually very intricately placed and embedded in multiple teams, or they assist the multiple teams, and they're seen as a key lever in success of the company. What role does the data team play in decision making across the company? So this is more outcomes based, and it's more based on what does the work of the data team, like how does it actually show up across the business? So that's a great question too. And my favorite question, which I always use in my interviews in order to shut down any form of hesitations, would be, of course, I would cough now. Do you have any hesitations about my profile and excelling in this role? So, what this question does is it makes the interviewer be transparent about if there was any issues throughout the interview process of your profile. So this is where they might raise something like, "Oh, we're just not sure about like your level of experience, and your skill level." That's something where you can be like, "Here's my portfolio. Let me walk you through some projects that I've done." Or maybe you're applying to a data role that's in a different industry. Like if you went into health industry, maybe they're like, "Oh, you don't really have much of a background in here." And then you would speak about how you've been able to apply your data skills to various industries or various projects. So that last question, especially when you get a no, when you get a no that they don't have any hesitations about your profile, that's actually really good. And it means you probably got the role. So that is a closing question that I use every time that I interview. And then if I get any rebuttals, I try to shut them down during that interview so it's not a lingering question on the interviewer's mind after the session. So some final preparation tips. So you're going to review your key skills and your stories. Refine your questions for the interviewer. Make sure you get a good night's sleep before. It doesn't make sense to stress for an interview. You want to show up as your best. You want to be calm. You want to be confident. You've gotten to the interview stage, so you must be doing something right. So I would say, like, make sure you have a great night's sleep before, you stay calm and confident, and you can even plan something relaxing after the interview in order to de-stress and to make sure that you're not thinking about this interview for the next 2, 3 days. Post interview, I would say to reflect on whether or not the role and the team aligns with your values and career goals. It is possible to go to an interview and realize that you do not want this role. It's not a good fit for you. The management is not a good fit for you. So it's good to reflect on that and not just accept any role that's out there. Yes, the market is tough, and you could kind of have like a role that you're holding on to for a little bit till you find your dream one. But I would say you do still need to understand if this is something that you're willing to continue the process for, especially since during negotiations, you might not get everything that you want. So if you're able to see the vision of where your career growth is going to be here, the type of projects you're going to work on, and how this works for your career overall, I would definitely spend time reflecting on that. Sending a thank you email that references things that you were speaking about with the interviewer is key. Having like a basic canned one, like we open it, but we're not serious about it. But if it is one that like references things that we spoke about, then I usually read through it. Follow up on next steps only after the time has elapsed of when they said they would reach out to you. So usually at the end of the interview, if they didn't mention it already, you would have asked, what are the next steps? So if they say they have a few more interviews and they'll get back to you in a week, I wouldn't send an additional follow-up. This is different from the thank you email. I wouldn't send an additional follow-up email until after the week has elapsed, asking about the status of the application. And then when you do receive the offer, I would actually review it. So actually make sure you read through all the terms. If you do need to go back and negotiate, you can do that. Um, and make sure that you review everything before you sign. So some takeaways that you have for this session is we have an enhanced LLM interview prompt. So this takes your resume and the job description, much like the resume optimization from last time, but it helps create questions for you that you can go back and forth with the LLM with. Some LLMs, they do have like the voice feature, so you could just speak back and forth with it. That way you can conduct your own mock interview, even if you don't have a friend that you could do it with. And then it can also assess whether or not you're using the different methods, like the code method, the star method, and the row method. So we are at the question period. Celeste, can you come back?
Hi, all right. Amazing advice. And I did already see some coaching happening in the chat. I know a couple of folks said that they don't always have questions, but come with questions. If you have no questions at the end of the interview, it really is a big detractor. You need to have some questions. The copy Kishana's if you don't have any of your own, but be prepared to ask some. All right, so we're diving in here. The first question we have is, what is the difference between pair programming and a live coding technical assessment? They both sound like the same. Yeah, give us a little bit more of a sneak peek of what that looks like. How long is that? For folks who have never had to do one of these things before.
So the pair programming, you're usually paired with someone senior on their team, and you're working together through the problem. So you can ask them questions. Um, you guys are working together on it. So you might be coding and they might be like talking you through it. So it's more of a collaborative way of testing your technical skills. Meanwhile, live coding is it's just you. It's just you. No one's giving you feedback or guidance or anything like that. The pair programming is more to see like how you work in a team. And also if they have a company that like they actually do pair programming in their data and engineering teams, they want to see how you would function in that environment. So they
Uh, um,
usually have one person that's like the driver that's coding, which would be you, and someone else who's more like suggesting. So you guys would be going through like that code format together.
so give us some more details on this interview format. How long is one of these interviews? How long might it last, Kishana? And I know this is going to be different, but give us a range.
Like the timeline or like how long an actual interview session is.
Yeah, how long might a live coding interview session last?
Oh, I would say like 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And how many, like, what, can you give us maybe like an example of some things you might be asked to do during that session?
So I've seen pair programming sessions where like you're cleaning a data set.
Okay.
I've seen sessions where um, you're never really like building anything end to end. It's usually focused on data cleaning and like questions, like you asking, or like a simplified case study with like simple analytics. They just want to see how you approach the question.
Perfect, perfect. No, thank you. Um, the, the, so I have a question. It's, where do they expect us to execute code? Will they share a preferred environment or platform? So you come to this, live coding interview. How does that typically work?
They usually share their preferred platform, so it could be LeetCode, it could be like their version of Jupyter Notebooks, but it's usually like a web-based platform for you to do the coding in.
Um, we have somebody, are there other resources that you recommend other than LeetCode for preparing for technical interviews?
I did find some when I was researching. I found one called like interview.io, and they have interviews that you could do with managers from different companies. And there was another one, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there's definitely like different databases of interview questions that I'm sure you could find like on DataQuest, you could find on Kaggle. Um, there's a lot of different communities that have like the list of questions. Um, there's different books. There's a book on it's called Acing the Machine Learning Interview by Susan Shu Chang. It's an O'Reilly book. That one would also have good tips on the interview process and how to prepare for machine learning interviews.
Well, thank you. Um, the, do you work across the company to gather the data, and how do you promote credibility when the values are unclear?
Is that a question you're asking me or the interviewer? Because that's a great question for an interviewer.
Yes, I think that maybe these are, and I was talking to Kishana, earlier this week, and I was telling her I'm terrible in the Q&A because I'm always listening to how she answers these questions because I'm always so interested, and then I forget to prep the next question. Yeah, I'm not sure about this question. I'm gonna come back here. Okay, let's see. Okay, I have another question here about finding data science internships. Do you have any advice about, especially in Canada? It sounds like the student is maybe looking for internships in Canada. Any advice there?
I would look when you're looking for internships, I feel like the larger companies have better like internship programs. Like they're more established, they have like better processes. And for summer internships, I know the applications start in January. So I would look at those companies, like some of the companies that we work with, like Borealis AI, for example. They have internships. Um, and like I know the banks have internships, different tech companies have internships, like Shopify, for example, they have internships as well. So I would look for like the larger, more established companies if you're looking for an internship, um, because they would be better resourced in order to like actually support an intern during that time.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we have a question about leak code. The student is wondering, when using leak code, is that primarily meant for software devs? They found leak code was pretty difficult. And what was it meant for? Was it Python or SQL? Um, yeah, tell us a little bit more about leak code.
So I know Leak Code is, I think it started for software engineering, but it's popping up in some data science interviews. So what I would do, and I have heard that it is difficult from people in our community. So what I would do is when you're doing your research on Glassdoor or wherever else you're looking to get kind of interview feedback of other people who have gone through the interview process, is see if they are a company that uses Leak Code at all. Because if they're not, maybe you don't need to go that route. Maybe you can just depend on the learning that you're doing through Data Quest. So I would like your research at the beginning is very important. And also in your research, because you know the company, one second. Because you know the company, you can go on LinkedIn and see people who are already working there, and you're able to ask them about their interview process, right? So they might be able to shed some light on how the process is and whether or not they use leak code. And that's also like another relationship that you're building.
Yeah, and I thought this advice was super invaluable, and everybody write this down. When you are in the screening interview, and this is along the line of those questions that you should ask, the screening interview, this isn't like they're the screener is there to help you, and everyone in the interview process is there to help you. Ask what the technical interview is going to be like. Ask what kinds of questions you're going to be asked. Ask everything. The worst thing that they're going to say is, we don't give that information out ahead of time, but probably they're going to tell you a lot about what it's going to be, and it's going to really let you prepare. So the more you ask, the more they're going to give you, and they'll probably tell you everything that you need to know. So get really detailed about the questions that you ask about that interview, and they will give you a lot of that information. But if you don't ask, then they might not tell you, and then it's going to be a big mystery. But the interview wants you, the person that, especially in that screener, they're there to help you, and they want to help you through this process. Um, the This is a question, and I'm sorry that you dealt with this, whoever asked this question, because it says anonymous, but they're saying, how do you deal with an interview that constantly downplays your experience during an interview? I don't know if you've dealt with just a rough interview situation where you just felt like you weren't jiving with that interview, or you felt like it was a really tough interview. Do you have any advice for a hard interview, Kashana?
Mhm. Okay, well, there's a difference between a hard interview and them downplaying your experience. I feel like if they're downplaying your experience and it feels like in any way like condescending or like belittling, things like that, like you might just want to be like, I don't even want this job because you're only in the interview process, so you can only imagine what it's like in there. They're supposed to be showing their best face to you right now. So if it's like that, it's a little bit confusing. But like this is where like that last question, the hesitations about my profile would come in handy. And if I was already feeling that energy throughout the interview, I would have asked that as one of my first questions. So I can kind of get an insight into their brain about why they're like downplaying my skills. um and also like referencing like the proof of my skills throughout all of my questions would be key for me. And then also like be real with yourself if this is a role that you would actually want, or if you accidentally applied for something that might be above your weight. But I want to X myself out until I was sure I didn't want it, if that
That
makes sense.
that's really good advice, though. I mean, this is, I'm sure you have been in interviews where you've realized this isn't a company that I wanted to work with. I know that I have, and if you have some question marks in an interview, definitely listen to your gut. Not every job is a great one, and sometimes that's you should be listening for that in an interview as well. We have a question: what options do you have to negotiate when you're completely new to the industry? We talked a little bit about negotiation, but yeah, like when do you know to negotiate and when do you know not to?
So I think you should always negotiate. But it's just like how far you're negotiating and what you're negotiating for. So as someone who's entry level, um, I remember there was someone on my team that was entry level and they didn't negotiate anything. And like as a part of their like exit interview, I was like, you never negotiated with me, and I need you never to do that again. Because you don't know what the range is on the other side. Companies have this budgeted, and they're also able to like pull from their budget from somewhere else for the candidates that they want. So I would say as entry level, like you should at least be getting what the market rate is in the country that you're in for that role. Minimum, that's what you should be getting. And then if you bring additional expertise, like for example, with the health example, like if you're a data analyst, but you have healthcare experience, then it's like there's a premium on top of that. And you shouldn't downplay your experience from before because you didn't just start, right? So I would say that, and I would say if they're not willing to budge on the salary stuff, there's other things that you can negotiate. Like the vacation is one of the easiest things to negotiate, unless they have like one of those hard, like you need to have this many years of service in order to do it. Um, that the working from home, ensuring that you have benefits, ensuring there's other things like sometimes they can waive like that 3 month period when you have to wait for benefits. So like you could ask for that to be waived, so it's like you're not out of having health insurance for 3 months. You can also ask for, I would just look through their benefits and see if there's anything that you could get them to move on. Sometimes they're even willing to pay for like your transportation to and from work, which is might just be them like paying for a bus pass for you. So you can just see if there's anything that might sweeten the deal for you. But you definitely don't want to come in like guns blazing. Suddenly you want 30K more than we spoke about when you were first screened. You need to make sure that it's honest throughout the entire process. But if I came to you saying that I wanted between 75 and 100K, and now the interviewer is talking about 65K, like we never discussed that, and you wasted both of our times, and I'm going to stick to my minimum of 75, right? So, it's just like you, and with negotiation, you have to act like you're willing to walk away, and you have to be willing to walk away. Like you can't, they can't like not give it to you, and you be like, yeah, I'll take the 65, because like that's not like this is poker. Like you have to have your face on and everything. I see Celeste laughing.
Yeah, I mean, negotiation is a tricky thing, and I mean, you need to be reasonable is the thing. So you need to know what market is. You need to know what market is in your area. You need to ask these questions up front during the screening interview. So what Kishan is saying is you need to set this up, and again, it needs to be reasonable. And if you're setting it up, and I think just asking that these are the smart things. What is your range? I think a good one is, how do you set salary ranges here? A lot of companies, like we do at DataQuest, we're a no negotiation company because we have very clear mechanisms for how we set salaries, and that's how we create equity and fairness. Some companies do it that way, others don't. They're going to be able to tell you that. They should be able to tell you that. And then you're going to know exactly what you can and cannot negotiate because they should be able to tell you that. And so you're going to have that up front. If they shy away from it, again, that might be a place that maybe you don't want to work. But I do see some other comments. Well, sometimes you just need a job. Absolutely. Sometimes you do. And then you kind of know when you are going to negotiate and when you're not. But yeah, you need to be able to be reasonable. The big one is, yes, you can't, and I have had this happen where I've talked about a range, people have said, this is my range. And then I've made an offer and they've asked for more than they said they would accept when we started. And I have then not hired them because it's a red flag to me on how I'm going to be able to work with them in the future. And so, yeah, like, be careful at the signals that you're going to send, even if you're not an unreasonable person that might come across, and you don't know each other very well, right? You're dating at this time. So you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward there as well. But just ask reasonable questions up front, and that's going to help you with that.
And I would also add with the like sometimes you just need a job. Like the job still needs to cover like your noodle budget. Like you can't be accepting jobs that like you're in a deficit now and it doesn't cover your expenses, and like you still need to go look for a job, so it really doesn't make sense. So understanding like your personal finances and like, okay, well, I actually need this amount of money every month, and ensuring that at least what they offered you covers that. Um, because sometimes it makes sense to wait.
Um, that we do have, so, and then we'll move on from pay. So they said, if a job is remote, should I still be working, looking at market rate for where I live? This is again, what you should be asking in that screening interview, especially with remote jobs, is what is your location-based policy for salary? And in most job descriptions for remote jobs, they will even disclose how they calculate that. There typically there is going to be some sort of location-based factor that they're looking at when they're looking at those, but it's something that they should already have set in stone, and they should be able to tell you it's typically based on cost of living in your country and the market rate that they're paying for that job. So we have a few questions about sort of applications and resumes here. If you've asked questions about resumes and approaching searching for jobs, what I'm going to recommend is that you go back through and look at the resume recordings, and we're going to share links to all of the previous recordings when we send out the email for this recording. We are running kind of low on time now. I'm seeing a lot of questions here about just sort of more coaching, getting internships and more things like that. So we do have one more webinar in the series coming up. That's next week, right, Kishana?
Yeah, and that one's on
Um,
community.
Perfect. So you're already registered for that. So you are going to get notifications for that webinar if you were here today. And then Kashana, you also provide coaching, and we haven't talked a lot about that, but I wanted to just kind of understand a little bit more and start to give everybody an understanding of, if they do want to reach out to you about the one-on-one coaching or the group coaching that you provide, what does that look like a little bit more? Can you tell us a little bit more about your coaching services?
So we do provide one-on-one coaching. So there's three different coaches. There's myself, Sifu, and Caitlin. Sifu and Caitlin are both like senior data scientists. So they can help more with the technical issues because my last role was in leadership in data. I'm a little bit more removed from like the minutia of the technical thing. So it sometimes we co-coach. for that. But we go through your resume, we go through your goals, we go through your learning path, we prep you for interviews. And like that, usually we recommend a 6 month coaching, because we find that that makes the most sense, especially if you're entry level. Because usually, if you're entry level, you haven't gone through the different paths. So, our coaching clients actually work with DataQuest. I'm sorry, it makes the most sense. For me, I've been recommending it since I was working to my employees. So they usually go through different data quest paths. We provide a place of accountability. We also help with any technical questions that they have while helping them choose like their portfolio projects and building out their portfolios, which, as we've mentioned before, is really important part of the process. So we've helped people transition careers completely, and also those who are already in data science secure their next roles, especially like after a layoff or something similar.
And so if they want more information about that, what's the best way for them to get that information?
The best way for them to get that information would be from our website. I'll try to find the link to put it in the chat. We have the group coaching. So the group coaching comes out, or the one-on-one coaching comes out to about 270 US a month. But we also have group coaching that's like 70 US a month. So there's like those different options there, but it definitely takes a more like personalized look. So if you've been feeling like you're a little bit stuck, that is usually a help. And we're able to help people. We have clients across the world because all the coaching is virtual. We just would need to modify across time zones.
Perfect, perfect. So yeah, so Kashana will share that. That there's also links to join her newsletter in the follow-up here. So I know we're at time. So if you're headed out, you can look at that. But I just wanted to make sure people knew that that we will go through the additional questions that we were not able to answer today and try to get those answers out to you. And then what is the last webinar on coming up here, Kashana?
The last one's on networking and community building in data science, which is really exciting, especially since I've been seeing in the chat that you're already doing some networking. So hopefully we're able to do a little bit more of that in our last session. So I'm really looking forward to it, and also helping you find communities in your local areas and also virtually that you can interact with. Because as we mentioned before, like networking is a big key in your job search journey.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This was really enlightening. And yeah, we'll see you next week for that. And then we're going to send out those interview prompts for the LLM prep sessions. Those will go out today, and then the recording will go out tomorrow. So check your email there. Nisha has posted a link to a type form survey in the chat. If you have just 2 minutes to give us some feedback, it'll help us make our sessions more valuable to you. So please take a minute and give us your feedback there. And thank you so much for your time today. Everybody have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
And
Thanks so
Kashana,
much.
we hope you feel better by next
I was about to
week.
say, I was like, thank you guys so much for being okay with my coughing fits I was having. Um, I really appreciate it. Bye.